And good Thursday morning, 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. We're already up to 86 degrees here in Payson. And this morning on Community Spotlight, we're talking with the superintendent of the Payson Unified School District, Linda Gibson, with us this morning. Linda, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you this morning?
I'm just finer than frog here.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Same face, different location.
That's right.
But I always appreciate talking with you.
Well, thanks. And it's always a pleasure talking with you as well. And golly, there's always good stuff to talk about, but man, there's a bunch that we want to work through in the next 30 minutes here. And right at the top of the list, I think whether people have kids in the local schools or they've just been watching the news, it's got to be a little confusing about, when are the kids going back to school? Some schools are, some schools aren't, and there seems to be a lot of conflicting information out there. But aside from all of the other distractions around the world, here in Payson, what's the latest as far as getting kids back in school and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So it is very, very confusing. So right now we are scheduled to have in-person instruction begin on August 12th, which is the Monday after fall break. What we do...
August 12th or October?
I'm sorry, October 12th. Excuse me. Let me rethink that.
I thought I was late getting back to school.
No, I'm just off on 2 months. October 12th.
Right.
What we do have right now going on is what's called on-site support services, which was a call within the last executive orders. On-site support services are in place at every site. It's based on physical capacity as well as supervision capacity. And what we did is we surveyed families, and we are servicing families as a whole. And when I say that, any family who does not have internet access qualifies first and foremost to come in for on-site support services.
Makes sense.
As well as students who are that are at home unsupervised, but also have a family member who is considered a special education student.
Right.
And then of course we're also servicing our employees' children as well for a place to be while their parents are at work.
Yeah, it's a real challenge for some families that they can't afford to stay at home. They've got to get back to work, and so it's a real challenge, and it's neat that you're stepping up to help with that. I know one of the things that I find kind of interesting, there was a story this last week out of the Mesa Unified School District, and granted they have thousands and thousands of kids there, but the word that came out was they had about 1,500 kids that were unaccounted for. They were doing everything just online, and about 1,500 kids kind of disappeared off the rolls suddenly. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of
significant.
Yeah. And whether it sounds like in a very proactive way you're addressing that, because kids that maybe don't have access to the internet at home that would be left behind aren't left behind, and or families who have to get back to work and can't be home with the kids. There's a safety net for all of them.
Right. So we are that piece is in play. What I can tell you right now is that the numbers that we thought would show, and that we created the rosters, I'm going to say, for based on the surveys from the families, the attendance rate this week has been rather low. So Katrina Sacco, who is our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, is working with each site as well as families to make those connections in case the spot isn't going to be filled, to fill that with the next family that's on the waiting list, or a family that calls who is in need, who possibly didn't see the survey and be able to address that need. We had approximately 300 students amongst the families that completed the survey indicating some form of need. Again, that's K-12, and we had to do a lot of logistics figuring out based on our space and our support that we did have. It does not provide direct instruction while they're there from their teachers. We have paraprofessionals that are working with those students who will assist children by all means. It's not I'm not going to help you, and also create some diversity within the day. They're not just sitting there all day long in the cafeteria type thing. We understand the needs of kids and changing things up so that they have a flexible day.
And what about as far as wearing masks? I mean, this is some people think you absolutely have to. Other people saying it's not. And there's been some scientific analysis that says it's not necessarily all that effective. But what about in the schools when you have kids, especially the younger grades? That's got to be a challenge.
You know what? Right now with our on-site support services, and based on the governor's executive order, and also that came down from Arizona School Boards Association, we do have to have children as well as staff when they come into the building wear masks. We do. All of our children that are coming in for on-site support services are social distance out. There are those break times, so they're not having to wear masks all day long.
Right.
Coming back for on-site, or I'm not on-site, but in-person instruction on October 12th, there's a lot of concerns. Especially at the primary level, Payson Elementary School. That's first and foremost on the front of their minds right now. And how are we going to manage to do this? There's some of us out there that hope that by October 12th, those mandates are lifted.
Right.
So that's not a requirement. We cannot get the number of kids in each classroom at a social distance level. Of course, we're also playing with numbers when it comes to the benchmark data from Arizona Department of Health Services and Gila County Health Department as well.
That's where I wanted to go next. I mean, these benchmarks there's a few different things that they're looking at before they say, okay, it should be good, now to open everything back up.
Right.
Arizona has been turning in much better numbers. It does seem like we're beyond the curve now and on the way down, and that's certainly encouraging information. But what are the things that you're having to look at as a superintendent of schools?
I appreciate you asking that. So there are 3 benchmarks, and right now currently we are red within 2 of those benchmarks. The one that we are green in is COVID-like illnesses or COVID-like symptoms. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe every county in the state of Arizona is green in that category.
Good.
The second benchmark is positive cases. We currently are sitting at a 13.3% rate. There are new numbers.
This is as a community.
Correct,
right.
as a county actually.
Oh, okay, right.
Within that, numbers come out today, and when that new number comes out today, there's a 1 week sharing of the number previously that was presented last Thursday. Michael O'Driscoll, our director of Gila County Health Department,
right.
He also had shared some zip code data with us as well that still keeps us in the red in that particular category.
Nice.
What we're looking for is a green light. There is a middle category of yellow, but really what we're after is that green, and we have to be less than 5% in that particular benchmark to get that green
Less
go.
than 5.
Less than 5%.
And so here's hoping that by October 12th.
Correct.
Now, what happens if
Right.
all of a sudden in the middle of September we achieve that?
Great question, and we've had that discussion even our superintendent advisory committee yesterday as well as with our leadership team. The third benchmark, and let me share that real quick, is the number of cases per 100,000 or a decrease with a 2-week decrease. I believe we have the potential, if not today, tomorrow, to receive a green in that particular category. We currently have more than 100,000, I think it was 113 last week per 100,000 within the county. If we get to where we have all 3 green, what we're really seeking is a continuation, at least 2 weeks of all 3 being green. Our concern is that we open under that status, but then we can turn around and be shut down. The Gila County Health Department has the ability to shut down a school site or a school district based on just 2 cases that are unrelated within the school setting.
Wow.
So that's a big concern.
Sure.
And the last thing that Gila County Health Department wants to do is to put that into play, but at the same time, we have to keep that on the forefront. So we want to provide some type of consistency, and that's why we pushed out to October 12th. So at least families as well as teachers and staff and everybody knows this is what we're doing till October 12th.
Right.
And at least we have an idea. It is not the best for kids. It is not the best for anybody, but it is the best that we can do in the circumstances.
And you've taught in the Payson area here for quite a few years. How long have you been?
Let's see, my daughter will be 24, so 23 years.
23 years, and you just took over as the superintendent this past year, and you feeling pretty special that just as you take over, we have this wonderful pandemic?
Special is not the right word. What I do
Not
feel,
sure we can use the right word
I'm
here on the
not,
radio.
I'm not sure what it is. What I can say is that the support in the community for Payson Unified School District, and also the support for the whole gamut, the district, the teachers, the staff, the position is profound, and that is very humbling. With also in the position, we have to look at, there's a lot of things that we haven't been able to do that may have caused little stressors over in one category, so those haven't been there.
Right.
And so I just think of them as piling up over here in just one COVID category that we're having to deal with. Communication is probably the most difficult and the strongest, and has created the most confusion.
Right.
And honestly, everybody's really trying to do the best they possibly can. So to really make sure we put in our forefront that we're giving the benefit of the doubt, not doubting.
So you have a lot of good community support.
I really feel it,
Oh, that's
and I think
beautiful.
the school district feels it too, as well as support from the board. And really, the goal is that we have not only a district, but a strong leadership team with a connection with the superintendent, with our school board, and our community. And there's a little bit of negativity out there, but and we hear the frustration more than anything, rather than somebody really thinking that we're doing something unjust for our kids.
Well, it sounds good though that the majority do understand, and it's certainly impacted a lot more than just our schools.
Oh,
I mean, local
absolutely.
businesses have been impacted.
Everybody. There's not
who
a
hasn't
person
been
in
impacted?
this world who has not been impacted one way or
Right.
another. And so I think that empathy, and for us to realize that, we really don't know, how somebody's shoes get filled,
Right.
because we really don't know the whole story, but truly to give the benefit of the doubt that everybody's trying their best.
Now, what about, when it comes to extracurricular activities at the school, when it comes to sports, I've heard some, not necessarily
Yes.
conflicting information,
Yes.
but I mean, it seems like everybody's just trying to figure this thing out.
Yes, and it is, again, everything is so confusing, and it is a mess. My personal feelings on it, to completely set aside, I've had more people ask me, what do I think? And it really doesn't matter what I think. It matters that we think about everybody else when we make decisions. Extracurricular and sports. Most of us think of extracurricular just as sports, but we also have many, many other aspects, theater, band, and so forth. I had a gentleman call, hopefully he's listening this morning. You'll see on the South soccer field some soccer players, you'll see some football players working out. Those are the two main ones. So scholastic sports as well as our extracurriculars, we are in phases, and those are based on guidelines not only from AIA but also CDC. Currently, right now, we are in phase 1. Phase 1 has key components. I just shared it with Pete Elshire as well, about numbers of kids that can be together. Right in phase 1, they can't be indoors working out. Everything must be external. And we are going to move to phase 2, which is a change in the number of kids that can be together on the field, and also allows the opening up of our gymnasiums for such as volleyball and so forth. Right now, AIA, I talked to David Hines, who's the executive director of AIA, and he has indicated that they are working hard to attempt to have fall sports still be a go. We will know more information on Wednesday. Right now, our fall sports start dates have been pushed out. So what you see, if you see them in the community working out, those are really preseason training sessions,
Right.
rather than official practice times. In that sense. And so when we say that, it's not that students are required if they want to be part of the team. I mean, tryouts and things like that have not happened. It's a collective group of kids. There could be, a coach there that's helping to supervise. There are steps to take of questions of screening for COVID, temperature checks, and all those pieces. But there are currently right now no internal facilities being used, but we're hoping to move to phase 2 because we've had a success in phase 1.
Now, as a kid, I had about 8 years of band. And so I've got to ask, now is the same true with the members of the marching band and stuff like that, where
Yes.
they're getting together, but it's outside?
Yes, they haven't done, the marching band hasn't done a whole lot of getting together. They've been in small groups working on how are we going to make this work.
Right.
And many of us who have seen them over summer times out on the blacktop and at the football parking lot, they spend so many hours outside. They have not been in a situation where they have pushed to that level, but I think we're going to see that start to happen. The goal is that we at least have 1 or 2 or something for these kids
Right.
to be able to play, even if it's one football game. One is better than none.
Yeah.
And at the same time, at least one competition for our band, one is better than none, as we want to be able to allow that as much as possible for our kids.
And as superintendent, I mean, there's just a plethora of concerns that I'm sure you have to look at as far as, we have at-risk kids that maybe,
sure.
really need to be in school for, for some kind of unnerving reasons that we don't need to go into right now.
Right.
But I mean, the schools tend to be a big safety net in a lot of different ways.
They do. So our biggest concern is the social emotional health of our students, and
Sure.
I think that's coming from our families as well. And addressing that through distance learning is very, very difficult.
Mhm.
I can tell you that our special education department, all of our service coordinators with students who do have, whether it's learning disabilities or even emotional disabilities, are reaching out to them directly, and they are coming into the schools on an independent basis. So they may come in for an hour for services, working with that particular instructor or teacher at that time, based on their individual education plan. So those things are set up. What I can tell you is all of our teachers are reaching out best that they can,
Right.
on a daily basis with all of their students, with scheduled meet times, checking in with them independently too if they pick up on signs, having those communications with families as well. It's confusing, it's hard, it's difficult, but there are unfortunately worse things out there, and that if we can all stick together and the more that we can do that and trust in each other, that people really are here for you, and to reach out to them and ask for that help, it's there. We just have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, and I think at times like this, it's got to be at least a little encouraging, I think, for everyone to be in a small town like we are here. Being born and raised in Phoenix, I went to Camelback High School, and when I was there, we had 4,000 students. So I mean, it was pretty easy for anyone to disappear in the crowd.
Sure.
Whereas
Sure.
at least up here, with all of these new variables with the whole COVID concern, people are able to keep a better finger on the pulse of what's going on and notice if somebody's missing or something like that.
And I appreciate you saying that. We actually have, I know 2 of our sites for sure have actually done home visits. For kids that especially starting on August 3rd, when we did start instruction, teachers weren't seeing on meets, or we had to have contact with them and getting enrolled and reaching out to them to say, what can we do, how can we help you, and making some home visits. There were some families that were a little surprised by that, because our school resource officer was there to assist.
Right.
And sometimes we get a little startled if a police officer shows up at our door with somebody else.
What'd I do?
Right, exactly. And I think that's human nature, but at the same time, it's really about supporting and helping. How can we get your kids enrolled? How can we get your kids going?
Right.
What do you need? Where's the struggle? And so forth. The Chromebook distribution for all grades 2 through 12, of course, has assisted in that greatly.
Mhm.
We had approximately, I'd say at least 50 or so individuals between administrators, paraprofessionals, department directors, and so forth, who worked in Chromebook distribution for a solid week prior to school starting on the 3rd. We also worked with free and reduced meal applications, that we had the best turnout in that probably than we've had in the last 5 years.
Right.
We also had the ability to recoup supplies that were maybe students had from last year and so forth. With that, the beautiful thing is there's not one person who's come back and said, they tested COVID positive, and it's been over 2 weeks, and we distributed 1,700 Chromebooks during that week.
Beautiful.
And so there's a lot of people in contact, and so forth there. But getting lost in the shuffle, I think you're right, that's one of our biggest things, is to connect and to check on them, and to do more of that. It takes a lot of time to do home visits and check-in, but it's worth every minute of it in the long run, to build those connections so that people feel like they belong and are welcomed, and that's hard.
I saw a really funny cartoon on social media the other day that made me think of everything that you teachers are having to go through, not to mention the parents at home. And it's just a silly little cartoon, but little Susie is walking into the bathroom with what looks like a tablet PC or something, and mom is standing naked in front of the sink, and the kid's like, how do I turn off the video call from class?
Yes.
And it's like, oh no.
No, we haven't run into anything of that nature, but one of the things we have stressed with our teachers is that families are inviting us into their homes through Google Meets.
There you go.
And it's kind of cute, the ones who are still eating breakfast, and there's been conversation of, remember, we're in class now, no breakfast time, make sure you eat breakfast before.
Right.
But I have to share a story, and this is so funny, and I hope I'm not stealing anybody's thunder from PES, but the story was that a teacher got on to a Google Meets yesterday at the scheduled time for 2nd graders, and 2 2nd graders were already in the Google Meets, and here's the kicker. One of them was already presenting his or her screen, and I don't know if they were 2 boys or a boy and a girl or vice versa, was presenting his screen so they could watch the movie that he had going on his computer. And I don't know, but presenting your screen, that took me quite a while to learn. And so our kids, They are super smart. They are very capable. There are people out there who think we're going to have these great learning gaps. We're not. We're going to have learning achievements. They just might be in different areas than what we were traditionally used to.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're going to have gaps. They're just learning differently, and they will catch up in these other areas that we think they need to be proficient in.
Well, I think there's something to be said too for, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to kids embracing technology, it's one thing to go to a class and okay, here's the on button and here's this and here's that, but the problem-based learning benefits that come with, just okay,
Here it is.
yeah,
Do it.
I mean the well, everything that you need to learn just kind of gets shoved down your throat quick, and you tend to retain that better.
Right, and you have to tinker. I used to say to my son when he was playing games, I'd come down and go, well, where's the directions? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, how do you know where to go or what to play or what you're after? He goes, well, you just know. I'm like, what do you mean you just know? And our kids, they do. They just know a lot of things that us older folks, I'm going to say, are kind of like, well, there should be written on how to do this. Things are changing, and we have to, it's harder for us to evolve, but they are going to evolve just fine. We have to trust that. But those, again, parents who are at home with little ones, my heart goes out to you. Take a breath. It's going to be okay. Work with them in the kitchen. Take them outside. If you don't get exactly what a teacher is asking you to get done, it's okay. It's going to be okay. It's the conversations with your children and being brave and fearless with them, because they're watching you, they're watching us, and the more we can do that for our kids, the better off they're going to be, because they're going to model our reactions.
Some very wise advice. Now, the kids aren't the only ones that are having to deal with this, distance communications. What about the school board? I mean, I understand that you've been having meetings, distance meetings via the web too, right?
Absolutely. Our meetings, the school board meetings, are held telephonically. They are open to public comments by all means, but not in person. So if a person would like to speak to the school board during a school board meeting, our board agendas are posted on Friday evenings, and within that there's a link to a form. That form will go directly to my administrative assistant, Lisa Conley, and as long as that form is completed, then a parent has the ability to speak. There's a phone number on the agenda as well, so they will call in when that piece of the agenda comes up. We'll say, hey, say it's Roy. Hey, Roy, are you on the line? Here's your opportunity to speak to the board. There's always a time limit in terms of how long a person can speak, and that's also dependent on the number of people who have sent in. If a person shows up, our board meetings are held at 5:30 in person. We'll share that same information, have a hard copy available for somebody to fill out, and take those into consideration as well, so that they do have that opportunity to be heard. Right. Everybody's voice is just as important as the next person's, and we want to address those concerns and frustrations with accurate information.
And I also need to ask, with some of the overseas work I've done, a lot of it was based on the use of telemedicine, where I would be in India and Dr. Michaels here in Payson would be looking over my shoulder from 8,000 miles away saying, do this, try that, put pressure here, and that kind of thing. And it made a huge difference in what we were doing, but it seemed like the adoption rate of telemedicine was really kind of slow in coming until this pandemic hit, and all of a sudden all of these doctors' offices that weren't doing it at all are now doing it with earnest. Right. And I'm wondering, when it comes to education, are there some doors that this has opened up with us getting used to, wow, we could do this and we could do that?
Absolutely.
Really?
For sure. We've never used Google Meets like we have starting last spring. What we've put in place for distance learning doesn't even resemble a piece of last spring. Last spring was a shocker to everybody, and just how to get through. Right now, what we have in place is a much stricter schedule. Levels of accountability, not only for students, for teachers, but administrators, the whole gamut. Right. But we are a Google reference district, which we are one of very few worldwide. I want to say there's about 250 worldwide. Really? And so in that, our teachers have passed Google certification tests at different levels, many of them, but also we are about Google. With that, in saying that, the level of meets or being comfortable of being on the computer and having those conversations is profound. I think education will change as a whole to some degree. Nothing will ever truly take the place of in-person instruction and that human connection of being together. And I think most of us understand that piece in there. But there will be some components that things will change, and to have that face-to-face, we can even take, I know with my own personal children, it's not just a phone call anymore. Now it's using Google. I don't know, they have an iPhone, I don't, but how can we still connect? It's not FaceTime, but then we can see each other and you feel like you're right there still with them, even though you're using the technology to have that communication. I know Vicki Andrews, our Director of Innovative Technology, her philosophy has always been, how do we connect our kids with the rest of the world and the world with our kids? And we can do that with these tools that we have.
Did you ever think when you were first going for your degree in teaching that there would be this breakthrough that would come around, it called Google of all things?
No, but I wish we had bought stock in it at some point in time. That and Amazon, right?
Yeah, there you go.
No, heavens no. Life happens, things change, and they change before our eyes, and all of a sudden it is whatever it is. No, I'm in the Atari age Frogger, jumping across the street.
Hey,
I can still
I date back to Pong. So.
Yeah, Pong, right, and I can still beat my kids in Pac-Man, where, but things have happened, and we have technology that is phenomenal. We also had technology 20, 30 years ago that was phenomenal.
Right.
It's just, things evolve, and if we don't evolve with it, then we become more extinct in that knowledge, rather than taking a risk, and that open-mindedness of being willing to learn. And sometimes we show that, we're like, no, I do not want to learn this, I'm not going to learn this. But we also have to make those choices. What do we lose if we don't?
Sure.
Type thing.
Well, I tell you what, I'm very encouraged. It sounds like the Payson Unified School District definitely keeping up with technology at a world-class level. Not necessarily just dismissing the whole COVID thing, but addressing everything as it should be, but at the same time looking for the earliest opportunity to get life back to whatever normal is.
Right. We kind of use the word pre-COVID normal. We know it's never going to go back to 100% pre-COVID normal. But at the same time, that in-person instruction is crucial to all of us. We want our kids back just as much as families want their kids back.
Who knows? From all of this, we might actually end up with kids that are washing their hands.
Right. And I think we all kind of laugh of, we've never washed our hands so much, or been conscientious of what we touch, or even in people's personal bubble space, right?
Right.
In that sense. So the awareness and the empathy is significant, and I think that's what we have to hold on to and take care of each other, much less ourselves, because if we don't take care of ourselves, then we can't help to take care of anybody else.
And to all you fellow huggers out there, don't worry, it'll get better soon.
I know, yes.
Well, Linda, thank you once again for being with us today. Always appreciate it. We look forward to having you back again soon.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, our pleasure. Now we have to get you back to more of your favorite music coming up. We have some cuts for you from Van Halen, Journey, Talking Heads, Bruce Springsteen, and a whole bunch more. But first, a quick look at weather.